Hi, in this exercise we're going to learn the basics of photo retouching and how to correct glitches in photos or undesirable objects. Let's start by opening the practice file by going to File, Open, and we're looking for 04a-start.psd, which should be in your retouching folder from the file downloads from this week. So just click on that one and click Open. So let's study the image and see what's going on here. We have obviously this bottom left section, which is missing, possibly from a torn photograph that got scanned in. And we also have this wake from another boat that was passing by, which we might not want. Now, what we're also going to do on this one is add some special effects text, and ultimately what we're looking to do is create this final image. So we're going to erase the lines over here, we're going to fix the edge corner over here, we're going to add some text integrated nicely with some transparency and drop shadow. So hopefully we can do this very quickly with some cool new tools we're going to look at. Let's switch back to the trouble image. Here we go. Now what we want to do is focus on some of the retouching brushes over here, and we have a variety. We have what's called the patch tool, usually visible in our toolbar over here. Maybe you have the spot healing brush or maybe the healing brush. These are all correction tools and retouching tools that alter the pixels of the image that you're working on. And a companion tool for this would be located just a bit underneath. The clone stamp tool would also be something you might want to practice with, and I'll demonstrate. So depending on the type of correction you're going to make, it helps to choose the right tool to make your life a bit easier. Now Photoshop's come a long way in that it automates a lot of work that used to be tedious and meticulous, and you had to sit there pushing pixels and being precise. I'll demonstrate a variety of techniques that we can use that have a different range of effort that's required. So I'm going to start with the clone tool, and I'll explain what that is. The clone tool, think of it as, it's also called the rubber stamp tool. It basically makes a copy of your source not the source file, but the source position. Okay, so how it works is you choose it. You can choose your brush size depending on how large you want the area affected to be. For example, if you use a really large brush size, the circle gets really big, and if you choose a smaller one, you can be a bit more precise with the size of your brush. The hardness is how soft or smooth you want the edges to be, depending on how you want to blend in with the rest of the image. And a lot of these are trial and error depending on the type of work you're doing. You might have to try a few things, see how they work out. Usually the hardness, I'll leave it at about 20%. The lower you go, the softer the edges. Maybe the blends might be a bit easier. And for size, that you can adjust as you go, depending on what you need to do. So to quickly change the brush size, you can use the angle brackets on your keyboard, left and right angle bracket, and those are located right next to the P on your keyboard. P like Peter. Those two buttons next to them on the right will increase or decrease the brush size, which makes it very convenient. Now the way the tool works is you position your source, like what do you want to copy. For example, I'll show you something really obvious. I hold down the Alt key and I choose this as my target area, and now you can see my brush is loaded with that area that I just copied from there, and when I click and drag, it's making a clone of wherever my cursor is passing over. So whatever pixels are in that area where I set as the source, it will clone them, duplicate them, and make a copy. And because of the softness of my brush edge, you can see there, it blends it in with the pixels underneath very quickly and easily. So we'll undo that. Now what I might want to consider doing is grab some pixels from this area over here and fill in that area over there. So this takes a bit of practice. You got to plan ahead a little bit. So I'm going to click right over here. Then I'm going to move my cursor that way. And just keep an eye out on where your cursor is. And you can let go and just move your cursor somewhere else and continue painting. And basically it's making an exact copy. If you look very closely here, if you look at that pixel over there, it's a perfect clone of this pixel right over there. Right? So the trick is to be as random as possible and to avoid showing the obvious pattern that's duplicated. And we'll see that in some other images where if you start seeing the pattern repeat, then the illusion is broken and people will spot that, oh, something's happened here, this is a retouch. But if you do it well enough and it's random enough, you can make a pretty convincing copy here and people would never know the difference. Now the other one over here, we can use the same tool. You can use the clone tool, make the brush a bit bigger because we have a larger area to get rid of. This one's a bit trickier because we have to stay close here and try not to pick up some of the people from down there. So this one's pretty easy, just practice doing the motion. It's like, okay, you're going to brush this way. That means your cursor is making a copy of some area down here. So it'll work in parallel. So let me just start there, for example. Now if I move here, see, that's what we want to avoid. It's getting too close to that person and now it's making a copy of it. So I'm going to undo here. I'm just going to say there and set my source for here. Make my brush maybe a bit smaller. And when you make your brush smaller, the source is also smaller. So you pick up less of the outlying areas. So now I'm going to click and drag slowly. And you don't have to do this in one shot. You can stop. You can look at it. You can say, okay, let me just reset my cursor here. Now I'm just going to copy that part. See, this is what I was talking about in terms of repetition. You could start seeing this area over here repeat too many times. So you might want to make sure you're not creating that repetitive pattern. So you can just click somewhere, pick up some texture, and put it in there. And keep going. There we go. Getting closer. Click. And for this area here on the edge, just get in there and paint it in. And now you take a step back and look at the image, and you can see that there's some residual pixels over here that break the illusion a little bit. So now you can grab some pixels from over here and just kind of dab and break up that pattern and repetition. There we go. Just to randomize things a little bit. There we go. So it's like nobody knew what was happening there. Beautiful. Let's add in some text. So click T. You can click and drag an area to constrain your text, and that'll put in paragraph text. Or, let me just get rid of that. You can just click the T tool, the text tool, and it'll create a cursor to write your text in. Want to move it right there. See, that's the center because you have that pink vertical line telling you that the text is centered on the page when you're moving it with the Smart Guide. Boom, right there. And now from your palette over here, you can choose maybe a different font or a different font weight. I'm going to go with something heavy. There we go. So let's paint it white. Always choose your T tool here. Choose white. And what you can do is change the transparency a little bit for that layer and make it like 88 or something, or 50 maybe. Too light. Let's go with 75. Just enough to be able to see the water through. Maybe we'll go with 66. There you go, perfect. And to give it a little punch, make it come off the water a little bit, we'll give this a little effect. So make sure your crew text layer is selected. Click on effects, and hold on, let me just bring that up a bit. From here, we're going to choose drop shadow. So the drop shadow panel opens up. You get a preview right away. And here in your drop shadow, you can set the different parameters. For example, the angle of the shadow. If you look over here, if you twist the dial over here, you can make the shadow come in from a different angle. Usually 120 degrees is pretty good. And you can change the shadow properties. You can make it softer, more contrasty, etc. So you can play around with these parameters and you get a live preview here. And once you're done, click OK. And there you go. So a little before and after action. If we open our history. So this is after, before, after. And that's it. That's a quick way to do some photo retouching. Tune into the next video. I'll show you some more tools, which are a lot easier.